For purposes of introduction of our speaker tonight, many of you have heard the voice and let freedom ring. It's a man by the name of Dick Backert, who has spent many tireless hours and years working in this cause. He is a friend and a patriot. Dick Backert. Dick.
Thanks, Steve. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow Birchers, guests, when my good friend Steve Thomas called me to ask if I would introduce Congressman McDonald this evening, I readily accepted and told Steve that I would be highly honored to do so, which I am. I thought I knew something about Larry McDonald's background until I received the biographical data that Steve sent me. Here it is, 4 legal-size sheets, single-spaced. It's full of achievements. Larry McDonald's life has been one of achievement, basically. He took his medical degree at Emory in 1957 at age 22. Honorable military service as a flight surgeon, professional and other awards, honorary degrees, memberships. It goes on and on. The author of books on the Constitution, Marxism, terrorism. The list is very impressive. If the congressman has done all of the things this list indicates, I must say that he is in incredibly good shape for a man of 93. Seriously, the list of Larry McDonald's accomplishments in his 48 years is one that any man would be proud to achieve in even the fullest lifetime. But Larry McDonald is not content, as are some, to rest on his laurels. The fact that he involved himself in the political process at all is testimony to his deep commitment to and love of this country and those whose sacrifices were supposed to have guaranteed the unalienable rights called out in the preamble. Larry McDonald could have just as easily remained out of the political fray, practiced medicine, earned a very handsome living, played golf every Wednesday with 3 other doctors, spent the weekends goofing off at the lake and having the same inane conversations with the same similarly unconcerned people on the Cobb County cocktail circuit. But Larry McDonald chose a different course for his life. As the point man in the movement to restore our severely wounded, moribund, some would say dead, Constitution, he has instead subjected himself to an incredible crescendo of ridicule and abuse by those who would have government become our master. Every 2 years, much of the Atlanta media rises up to vilify and castigate this man simply because he refuses to abandon his principles and go along to get along. If your perception of our speaker is one gained from what much of the media in Atlanta says about him, and this is your first in-person exposure to the congressman, please note that he does not have 2 heads, horns, or a forked tongue. In connection with the media, Larry, I think Dick Williams' recent apologia relative to your position and espousals on Latin America are hopefully a breakthrough in that area. I'm going to shut up and sit down in a second, but let me share a recently discovered quotation with you that I think summarizes Larry McDonald and his life. Mourn not the dead, but rather mourn the apathetic throng, the cowed and the meek, who see the world's great anguish and its wrong, and dare not speak. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my singular and distinct privilege to introduce a man who has the courage to speak, a patriot, the Honorable Lawrence P. McDonald. Larry.
Thank you very much, Dick. And ladies and gentlemen, let me say it's a real pleasure to be back in Georgia. Yes, Dick, there were those 4 pages. My mother wrote those, and so it's appropriate. Dick mentioned that, rather than being an active person in all that's going on, I might have been enjoying the cocktail parties here at Cobb County or some such frivolous remark. I personally think that the most boring institution ever developed in the history of man is the American cocktail party. Some of you may view it as a time of great opportunity and excitement, but from my standpoint, I think it's the most boring thing we've ever put together. I don't know why we keep having them, but I guess it's part of the custom. I generally find myself in Washington with so many of the receptions and dinners that it's my responsibility to attend as the representative of the people in the 7th District for various conventions or various groups that are having their meetings there in Washington. And frequently these meetings are preceded by a standard cocktail party. And you find sort of a similar situation. Everyone's standing around. If it's a man there, for example, left hand usually is in his trousers pocket and the right hand is clutched around the glass. Everybody has sort of a plastic or wax look to them. Everybody looks somewhat interested. No one is able to understand anyone else. Someone is speaking, you're nodding your head yes. I sometimes wonder what it is I'm nodding to that people might be saying. I'm sure probably the same is reversed when I might be saying a word or two. But I think that sometimes it has to be the most boring institution that we have developed in our society. Let me say it's a pleasure to be back in Cobb County, and I appreciate this opportunity of coming before you and making a report on what is happening in Washington and a review of our heritage and the challenge and opportunities that are now before each and every person in this room, and indeed your friends and neighbors who are not here.